Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Scares That Shaped Us, a podcast about horror writers and the stories that made them. I'm your host, Matthew Jackson, and this show is officially 1 year old. We launched on August 28th, 2024. It is now August 27th. Close enough, because it's a Wednesday, which is when we drop episodes. But yeah, we're 1 year old, everybody. Thanks for sticking around and being a part of it. We are celebrating today the best way we know how by having our original guest, a dear friend of the show, Clay McLeod Chapman, back for his third visit. We're going to talk to Clay about his new short story collection, Acquired Taste, and we're going to talk about one of the greatest short story collections ever published, Stephen King's Skeleton Crew. It's a great time. We talk a lot about short fiction and Clay's approach to it and the influence of King, and a bunch of other stuff. We also talk a little bit about the Ghost Eaters movie, if you're interested in that, so stick around. In the meantime, I have an announcement for everybody. In honor of our 1 year anniversary of this podcast, we are starting a newsletter. It is up right now. You can go and sign up. All you have to do is go to MatthewJacksonWrites.com, Writes as in WRITES, MatthewJacksonWrites.com. That is going to be the landing page for a newsletter that is focused on my writing about horror as well as this podcast. It will be a place for essays, a place for reviews, a place for bonus content from the show, a place for possibly some bonus podcasts, some audio commentaries, things like that I'm talking about doing with my friends. It's going to be a lot of fun. It will be all horror all the time over there. My other writing about film and literature and stuff will still be around on the internet and other places, but I am covering horror in depth in any way I want on this newsletter. So if that sounds cool to you, go to MatthewJacksonWrites.com, sign up. There are paid tiers. There are ways to kick a little money our way. You can kick in as little as $1 a month if you would like to support everything we do. I do not sell ads for this show. We are an ad-free show. I am doing this all for free. So if you like the show, you like what I'm doing, you want to get some extra fun stuff from me on the newsletter, feel free to kick in $1 or $5, whatever you feel like. But if you're not able to do that or you're not sure yet, you can also sign up for free. You're going to get a lot of cool writing from me. I've got a new essay up today about the scariest scene I've ever watched in any horror movie. I will be posting new stuff regularly there, at least a couple of times a week, if not more. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff, book reviews, film reviews, long form essays, cool stuff coming in October, posts about horror movie trailers that I really love, just all kinds of stuff. So if that sounds good to you, I would really appreciate you signing up and supporting us in whatever way you're able. And yeah, tell your friends. We're going to have a lot of fun over there. There will be some Scares That Shaped Us bonus content going up there in the near future. So yeah, we hope to have you on board. But that's enough of me rambling for now. So let's head over to our interview with the amazing Clay McLeod Chapman. Joining us this week on The Scares That Shaped Us is one of our favorites. He is the original guest on The Scares That Shaped Us and a dear friend of the show. You will know him from books like Ghost Eaters, What Kind of Mother, and Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. His latest book is a collection of stories. It is called Acquired Taste. It is out September 9th, wherever books are sold. Clay McLeod Chapman, welcome back.
Ooh, the OG. The original
OG,
guest.
The OG is in the house today. Before I get into anything else, you've got 2 books coming out in the next 4 months. So I want to be sure to talk about these things. But I first want to ask, because it's pretty fresh in the news, you are getting we are getting a Ghost Eaters adaptation. It's happening. Maggie Levin is adapting Ghost Eaters for us all. How are you feeling?
Terrified. Actually, that's not true. It's the best. In no uncertain terms, am I the giddiest little son of a bitch that ever existed. I am a kid in a candy store. There is nothing when you're dealing with Hollywood, it could all go away tomorrow, and it probably will. But as of this moment, recording this, I am just so happy because the train is chugging along, and yeah, who knows? We'll see.
I am so excited for you and so excited for us. Because the idea of seeing that haunted Richmond slash New York slash everything landscape, that haunted neighborhood with the plastic up all over everything, and people saying want to get haunted, and I'll be able to talk to horror movie fans about want to get haunted. Oh man, I'm so excited, and I'm so happy for you. It's great to see a book like this getting recognized that way.
I am I've never wanted anything more in my life. So I have to the cardinal sin of Hollywood is getting your hopes up. So I just have to manage my expectations. But Maggie is so awesome, and Scott Derrickson is so awesome, and Cargill is so everybody behind it is are the best people. So I just have to, keep the fingers crossed and the toes crossed and the breath held. But it's just nothing but goodwill so far. So I'm just totally over the moon.
I'm very excited to see what happens with Ghost Eaters, and I'm so happy for you as someone who has worked in film before, and now you're getting this kind of recognition for your prose. But I want to talk about Acquired Taste specifically today, because it is just so much fun. And this, we've talked about this. I am a fan of your novels. I am absolutely in for all of your novels, but your novels are very, very dark experiences that aren't necessarily, and this to me read like your opportunity to play Robert Bloch and Richard Matheson. It read like a series of just set them up, knock them down, perfectly timed little bullets of fiction.
Wow.
And
okay.
I've read your short fiction before, but I had never read it. I was just knocking stories out back to back to back because these things read so briskly. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, this is Clay, the happy horror host, just directing us like the Crypt Keeper to various little macabre tales. So why was this the right time for a collection for you?
Oh God, is it the right time? I mean, wow. First off, that's amazing, saying everything that just came out of your mouth. It's funny because I started off my very, 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 very first book 2,000 years ago was a collection of short stories called Rest Area. And it's in an alternate reality, I would be doing nothing but writing short stories. I did not set out to be a novelist. I am, industry dictates that if you are to be a writer in this world, you have to write novels. Mm-hmm. But for me, at least initially, I was under this kind of false assumption that I could make exist as someone who just writes these little yarns, and that's not true. You can't do that unless you're I mean, I'm sure there are those out there, but not me. And so it's just so funny because my default will be just to kind of oh, I've got a day, a couple days, I'm just gonna nobody's asking me to do anything, so I'm just gonna write a little short story. And I just I just do that. This is just, I'm just writing short stories when nobody's paying attention to me. And a lot of the times, some of the times, most of the times, not all the times, occasionally I over the last however many years, I've been able to get these stories into publications. And It's just funny when like nobody's like looking. No one's, I've been able to kind of slip under the radar for a while and just kind of amass this kitty of little vignettes, little short stories. And it wasn't until Titan, who I've been publishing with a lot of my UK editions of novels. My editor there, God, I can't even remember how the conversation came up, but like the conversation shifted to like, hey, let's do a collection of short stories. And I had just been sitting on this like stockpile of pieces. Like my last collection came out in 2017, and that was called Nothing Untoward. And then there was this one, and so that's like almost 10 years worth of stories. And Daniel, my editor over there, we just cherry picked the kind of lean mean 25 that we thought like really worked. And yeah, so I mean, to go back to your question, I don't know if this is the right time, but it's my time.
Yeah,
damn it. And here we are.
Well, it's a really cool collection because it's got some recent stuff that if people have been following everything you put out, they'll know, like the Spew of News, which came out in the found footage anthology.
Yeah.
That Gabino Iglesias co-edited with
Andrew Coleman.
There we go. I was blanking on the second name. Thank you. And then Baby Carrots, which came out a while back, and then one of the final stories is Stay on the Line, which was one of your shorter works that came out last year, which is super creepy. But I was I had so much fun with so many of these stories. I mean, I had fun with all of them, but like you have a story about a comic book burning by a religious extremist that goes horribly wrong. You have a story about a Santa Claus who can see ghosts, which, Clay, you were here for our Christmas show last year. You know that is my jam. I am like, I try when I'm reading someone's collection for the first time, I try to read them in the order that they are laid out, because I feel like there's a rhythm to that and what the author and the editor selected. But as soon as I saw a story called Psychic Santa, I was like, no, I'm reading Psychic Santa. I got to go to that. Like,
that's amazing.
And that story, and there's a story called Who Brings a Baby that is about that starts with someone being annoyed because there is a crying baby in their movie theater. It feels like a lot of these stories stem from a very straightforward observation from life, and you tweak it just a little. So like Psychic Santa, were you like at the mall with your kids and saw a Santa Claus and went, what if like a dead child came to see Santa? What would that be? Like how did that this is a weird question, because I always try to ask about the way specific stories grow and change and develop, because where do you get your ideas is such a weird concept to ask someone. But you said you write these very quickly. Do they kind of hit you fully formed a lot of the time?
No, I mean, it's funny because at this point in my life, I'll have, I don't do drugs, but I will often have stoner epiphanies. Where you're just like kind of like going through life and you'll notice something and you'll be like, huh, I wonder what it would be like if, or like you just ask the question. And, a piece like Who Brings a Baby, which is about a moviegoer getting really annoyed at like a, crying baby. Like, of course, like I'm in a movie theater, I'm watching a movie, there's a crying baby, and it's like, you're watching a movie at 9:00 at night, a horror movie, and like someone has brought their kid, and me, I just have that moment of like, who brings a baby? Like, what? And it's just like, honestly, it's just that stupid question. It's just like, it starts with a question, And then the story kind of unfolds with either an answer, or one question leads to another question, which leads to another question, which leads, until I'm actually writing it out. And like, I'm just kind of chasing that dragon. Like I'm just following the money, like whatever kind of leads to the final kind of epiphany. But more often than not now, and this is a recipe for disaster. And like, there's a reason why not all of my stories make their way to publication, but like I'll ask a question and I'll just use the story as my opportunity to answer it. And sometimes they fizzle, sometimes they lead to the narrative, they lead to the epiphany. And yeah, I've put a lot of faith in not knowing where the story's going. Like I'll have like a general gist, like, okay, this feels like there's something there. It's like, I'm murdering all of my metaphors today, but like, it's like fishing where like you get a nibble, there's like something on the line and you just got to reel it in. And sometimes it's like a little gipper, little minnow, but other times it's like it's a big one. And I just never know until I reach the end, and I could choose to revise it and like kind of like dig in a little bit more. Like it's amazing because you mentioned Psychic Santa. That was a part of a anthology called Literally Dead, which came out a couple of years ago. But Daniel, my editor, he really took me to task with that story. Like he liked it enough for it to be in the anthology, but he wasn't going to let it go. Like he was like, he beat me up over that story. He wasn't going to leave good enough alone. And like, I revised it heavily based on his feedback. So the original version in the anthology versus the collection version, like I wouldn't say they're like apples and oranges, they're night and day, but they're definitely considerably different. And that's because Daniel really wanted me to go deeper and push it further. And so basically you can just blame Daniel Carpenter. His mailing address is.
You talked before about hoping to make a living writing short stories and not realizing yet that was kind of not so much a thing now. What's funny about that is it used to be like there were, all these guys that were, I mean, they weren't necessarily always good livings, but like the guys who wrote for the pulps, who wrote for Weird Tales and Black Mask and all that stuff, they would I mean, Harlan Ellison tells a story about like, I sold 150 short stories in 1 year and the next year I sold 200. And I'm like, yeah, those were the days when you really could just like spend a couple days and send it off to a magazine, get a check, and then spend another couple days. And but that there's a tradition from that era that carries over a little bit into this collection in a story that I love, which is this idea of different genre writers sort of tapping each other, just sort of tagging each other in their own work. And it's something that, a lot of people do in various ways, but you did it very memorably in this with a story called Nathan Ballingrud's Haunting Horror Rex, which is honestly, like, reading it, I don't want to give away what happens in the story, obviously, but it is about this group of friends who are horror fans who essentially decide Nathan Ballingrud would give the best book recommendations. He would be, and he works in a bookstore, which is true. Like, I've never met Nathan, but I know that he does because he posts about it on social media. So they're like, we got to find the bookstore he works at. We got to find him and track him down and let him tell us what to read because he's a living fucking legend. And as someone who like I'm that, like, the first time I read a Nathan Ballingrud story, I went, oh my God, like this guy is on another level. There is something magic here that no one else has. how did that story happen, and does Nathan know about it?
Oh God. It's almost embarrassing. I mean, I will say the first half of that story are those sentiments expressed by the fans in the story. Those are my personal sentiments. Like, I do genuinely believe that Nathan is a living legend, and like, I there's no holding a candle to that man's writing. And like, when I learned that he worked in a bookstore, I just had that. Again, it's that stoner epiphany where it was like, huh, I wonder, like, could I get in the car right now and just drive down to North Carolina and like visit him in his store? Like, has that ever happened to him? Like, does he have to, like, what is the kind of like readership, authorship kind of interplay for a man an author whose work I hold in such high regard? That, like, does he have to kind of like, like, graciously, like, like, say like, no thank you, like, please, like, shop the store, don't bother me. Like, I just I just but I went down that rabbit hole, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, here's a story. And you know and of all the stories that you mentioned Stay in the Line, you mentioned Baby Carrots, like, these are all stories that there's this amazing indie publishing company called Shortwave, and they've done a phenomenal amount of stuff. Like, they've put out, and I think they need to be given a lot of cred for having published a lot of the stories that are in this collection.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone go shop Shortwave Publishing's site. They have a lot of great genre authors, including Clay over there. But anyway, yes.
They do. And they did a fundraiser anthology called Shadows in the Stacks. And it was kind of speaking like let's support libraries, and all the money that's raised kind of goes towards public libraries. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to write this story about Nathan Ballingrud. And I had to ask him, I reached out. I was able to kind of get his email address, and I sheepishly wrote, and I was like, hello, Mr. Ballingrud. I'm like, I was like going through the motions of like, I'm going to be writing this story, and I wanted to ask if it's okay if I publish this piece. And he was very gracious, and he wrote back, and he's like, sure, kid. You go for it, guy. And it's out there. And like, I think he's read it. I think I can't say he appreciates it as much as I'm sure he tolerates it. I don't know. Like, like, it's paying lip service. It's like paying him respect. And he's a champ. He's a pro. He's like, thank you. Like, and I doubt that it's led to any harm or any further. Maybe someone has been like, who's this Nathan Ballingrud guy? I'll check him out.
Man, yeah, I would absolutely be like, he has a book coming out here in a couple months, and I would love to have him on the show, and I'm going to reach out to his publicists and see if that could happen. But I do feel like it would be sort of the Chris Farley show.
Yeah.
A little bit of like, remember when you wrote that story about the construction site and the werewolf? That was awesome.
I mean, his first collection, it just blew my mind. Lake Monsters, like, when you don't know an author and you encounter their work clean, and it changes you. Like, Joe Hill's first collection did that to me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like John Langan. Like, there are authors who, yes, they write longer fiction, but like I think there's something to be said about what they do with short stories that just it's there's just something miraculous there. And Ballingrud is like I'm really happy that the story is in the collection because it's just me goofy. Like it is such a lark, it is such a goof. And I just want to like do my Wayne's World, like we're not worthy, we're not worthy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I first encountered him because of Ellen Datlow, because she collected his story, The Atlas of Hell. She has collected that story in at least like 3 or 4 books at this point. And it's very like it kept coming up like just read the damn story, okay? And I read it and I was like, "Oh my God, what is this?" And then I had to go get North American Lake Monsters, which was re-released as Monsterland because of the Hulu show.
Yeah.
And Wounds, 6 Stories from the Border of Hell, which is an amazing title. Yeah, we big fans of Nathan Ballingrud here. Before
I have to ask, do you know the proper pronunciation of his last name? Because I to this day feel like I've said it, murdered it a million different ways.
I do not know. I think it's Ballingrud or Ballingrud. I don't know. I will have to go like dig up an interview with him and see like what, because I know I've heard him talk before. I've seen interviews with him, but I can't remember how they pronounced his name when they introduced him. So, if we are butchering your name, Nathan, we apologize. We are big fans. But before we get over to talking about our topic of the book that you brought today, I did want to ask, because you have Acquired Taste out in September, but in November you have a young adult novel coming out called Shiny Happy People. And I do want to let people know so they know to go hit their pre-orders and all that. So if you could give everyone a little teaser of what is Shiny Happy People, what can we expect?
It's about this band REM that no, it's
Athens, Georgia, 1982. Yeah.
Oh God. It literally, just quite sincerely, it is my riff off of Body Snatchers. Like I was given the opportunity to do a kind of contemporary Snapchat version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And I don't know, like, imagine there is, a bucolic suburban southern town that, there is a new kind of party drug that is kind of sweeping through this local high school, perhaps going even further out. But the kids in this one school are suddenly kind of falling prey or succumbing to this new drug. And it is leading to a complete face change, like a facelift of personality and identity. And yeah, it's just my chance to kind of like speak to peer pressure and addiction and social media, and just how, and like the opioid crisis, and just like how you could have someone who and love one day, and then like the next day they're just someone completely different, and how that happens a lot in this day and age. And
it sounds kind of like a sister novel to both Ghost Eaters and Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. Like you're playing with those themes again, which is exciting.
Yeah, and it's wild because it's like a YA book, and the hope is that it like kind of reaches this audience of readers who are kind of in the trenches, dealing with this stuff, and I don't know, man. It's just so funny how like I don't know if I am kind of even cognizant of what themes matter to me until I'm writing about them, and then suddenly someone outside of myself says like, "Hey, wow, this is it's kind of like the threads that you were poking at with Wake Up and Open Your Eyes or Ghost Eaters, and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh yeah, you're right, huh? And not to dovetail it into acquired taste, but like there again, it's like it's not until like someone kind of lays it out for you that you're like, oh my God, like I'm really obsessed with mushrooms, or I'm really obsessed with social media, or I'm really obsessed with drugs. As and like, but that it kind of makes sense that like, you're not cognizant of like, I'm going to be writing about this today, or I'm going to be focusing on this until you step back and say like, oh wow, I have a real problem about like writing about X or Y or Z.
I don't know if it's a problem. I think no. I mean, it's a recurring thing in your work, and I think that like I think that's cool. I think it's fun to have an author play in a space over time, and you can see how that sort of stuff evolves.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it, and everyone else should be too. I'm sure it's going to be a blast to read. But transitioning over to our chosen topic, because Clay and I, we always talk a lot. This is just how this is the Clay McLeod Chapman experience. This has been a long intro segment here, but we are having a good time, and we're going to talk about a classic short story collection, Stephen King's Skeleton Crew, which was his second major collection of short fiction published in 1985. It collects stories that were published from the 1960s all the way up through the mid 1980s. So it's a very wide swath of Stephen King's interests and themes and preoccupations. I consider this to be the scariest Stephen King collection.
Wow.
I think that my favorite, just as a reader, just for pure entertainment, is Night Shift.
Yeah.
And I think that in terms of like literary achievement, if we want to use that as a yardstick for any of this, in terms of short fiction collections, I think Just After Sunset or You Like It Darker, his most recent one, are the best. But Skeleton Crew has going down the list of terrifying shit in this collection. It opens with The Mist, and then you have the monkey, you have the jaunt, you have the raft, you have Survivor Type, which is one of the more terrifying and cringe-inducing Stephen King stories. Clay, what do you remember about your first experience with this particular King book?
I mean, it's always funny to me how you can be in conversations with an author and like you can kind of have almost the same origin story. I mean, there is no hyperbole when I say it was Night Shift and Skeleton Crew that taught me, that showed me how to write horror short stories. Like I had been exposed to Edgar Allan Poe. I had been exposed to other horror stories prior to this, but like for me, I mean, it all boils down to 7th grade. I was not a good student, and I had problems paying attention in class. And this was an issue stemming way back, from the beginning. But I loved to read, and I found Stephen King in the 7th grade. I found his collections in middle school, and I read, whatever was happening at the front of Miss Robinson's 7th grade English class, I couldn't tell you, because I literally had Skeleton Crew open, hiding underneath my desk in my lap. And I was just reading that story, those stories all through school, not paying attention, failing school miserably, but like class was in session in my hands. Like I was like, this was like, I was just kind of blown away and just kind of taken to these worlds. And I would get in trouble with it. Like my teacher would kind of pull me aside and be like, what are you doing? Like she thought I was like writing notes or something. I was like, no, but I'm reading a book. And it just so happened to be Stephen King, which got me in even more trouble. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I always kind of like do a little bit of a cringe when I'm like, Stephen King got me started, guys. Because everybody says that, but it's true. Like Stephen King is the family tree. Like he introduces you to Lovecraft or Bloch or Matheson or like you have to start somewhere, and these collections for me got me on my path. And I mean, I will forever remember reading The Jaunt, and how terrifying that story was to me as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old. Beach World, oh my God. Like he taught me how you could have a story and just like sucker punch you with those last few lines. Like Survivor time. Geez, I'm gonna just start listing off stories that just like blew my world. But like, I mean, like, this is like, there is a reason why King is here for us. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll shut up, I swear. But like, you mentioned some of his kind of older short story or his early, like more recent short story collections. But like for me, the 1, 2, 3 was Night Shift, Skeleton Crew, and easing into, but departing with Nightmares and Dreamscapes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like that was my education in writing short stories, to the effect that like all I did for years was just copy him. Like all of my short stories were just like, I was just writing Stephen King short stories.
Oh, absolutely. Like I didn't start reading horror until I was in high school. I was like 15 when I first started buying King books. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time I encountered a short story collection by a single author. Mm-hmm. Because it just, by that point it just wasn't a thing that was done as much. By the time I was reading horror fiction, and it didn't occur to me. And then I found Clive Barker and everybody else, but I loved Stephen King. I had started with novels, and then I was like, oh, this is like 20 Stephen King stories in one book. Great. I'll buy this. And in my senior year of high school, had like a free period, and I couldn't decide what to do with it. And like when I was making my schedule, it was like, well, what class do you want to take here? And I didn't want to take another math class because I was not a math person, and they were like, well, we have these math classes. It was a small school, so there weren't like fun. It wasn't like, oh, I'll go take a metal shop or so. We didn't have that. It was very limited. And my AP English teacher, my favorite teacher ever, Mrs. Burnson, love you, Mrs. Burnson, said, well, why don't you want to be a writer, right? I said, yeah. She said, why don't you do an independent study course with me? And basically what it will be is you'll come in during my free period when I don't have a class, and you can sit at my classroom desktop computer over there, and you can just write stories. Wow. And as long as you are producing stories, you get a passing grade. And I was just copying Stephen King. I was just like, speaking of Skeleton Crew, there's a story in here, a very good story called Word Processor of the Gods, that is about a guy who essentially realizes that his weird word processor that he now has can literally change his life with a few keystrokes. I read that story. I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. What if you did it with like a calendar and you would write stuff on the calendar in the future and then it would come true? And I wrote this very clumsy, shitty little story. Like none of those stories are ever going to be published, but it was like it was just me copying Stephen King just every day, just thinking of like, what can I riff on here? And funnily enough, my first published short story ever, the first piece of fiction I ever got paid for, was also sort of copying Stephen King. I wrote a story in this. There's a story in Nightmares and Dreamscapes called The Moving Finger.
Yeah.
That is a brilliant story about a guy at home one night who finds there's a finger coming out of his bathroom sink drain and he can't figure out why. And it sort of takes over his world. And I read that story and then started thinking about it and wrote a story about like a housewife who's home alone one day and she's cleaning the bathtub. And all of a sudden this little golden eyeball creature pops up out of the bathtub drain, and she falls in love with it because there's something about it that she just obsesses over. And it turns out to be like a big Lovecraftian monster thing. And that was published in Weird Tales like a decade ago. But that was, again, copying Stephen King. Like it really is a thing that I think most of us go through of like, yeah, let me just riff on this, because he was so good at, here is a fun concept. Here is a mist rolls into town and there's monsters in it. What do you do? Mm-hmm. There's a way to teleport, but there's a catch to teleporting. What happens if you trigger that catch? There's a raft in the middle of a lake, but there's a monster in the lake and you didn't realize that when you swam out there. What are you going to do now? And it is such a great like starting point for so many horror short fiction people to be like, oh, this is how you do that.
Yeah. I mean, I do think because of those kind of like a raft, a jaunt, a word processor, a clapping monkey, like I have to imagine, and I'm sure he's written about this a million different places, so I'm just repeating what has already been stated, but like you got a guy like Stephen King, he's in a place, he sees something, he says to himself, like, what would that be like if it was haunted or it had a like he takes the mundane and kind of puts his imprimatur on it by shifting it into something supernatural. And like that was definitely the biggest takeaway for me, where it's like, take in the world around you, observe, and put a ghost in it. Like, it's like, oh, it's a haunted guitar, like, woo, like, like, it's like, what, like, it's a haunted podcast. Like you take your everyday, you take the things that are around you and you filter it through whatever perspective, whatever spin you have. And I don't know, there's something very kind of liberating about that, where it almost takes a certain kind of pressure of being precious about it, like it's just like, I don't know, like I just love that it's his imagination kind of gives you and your imagination permission to just riff, to just go play. And I don't know, I just love that. Like I'm just looking, like I think whether he says it or not, Stephen King makes me feel more observational. It makes me take in the world around me a lot differently.
Yeah.
And that's all I needed.
It like primes your brain for, you start looking at things around in the world around you and going like, that tree looks kind of spooky. I wonder what it would do if no one was watching it, or anything. It is a way of thinking about story that primes. And you mentioned something that I want to go back to, because it's something that I talked about with Josh Mallerman when he was here, and he was talking about it in the context of a horror anthology movie, not a book. But he was saying like the great thing about anthologies and collections is you can just try stuff. It can be anything. Like you can just, he was talking about a story he wrote about a tree that instead of fruit, it grows weapons.
Hmm.
And he said, like, that was just a random idea I had, but I was like, oh, let's try it. Let's see if it becomes something. And it is very interesting to look at short fiction that way, because it really is just, I can write 3,000 words in a couple of afternoons or one afternoon or whatever, and then it's done and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But hey, I get to play.
Yeah.
And Stephen King definitely has that, especially those early collections, has that sense of play. Like Night Shift is full of it. Night Shift is so like, oh, you got this all these toy soldiers got sent to you, but they're alive and they can shoot you with real bullets. And it's amazing. And I feel that in Acquired Taste. I feel reading it, I feel a sense of like they're thoughtful stories, obviously. Like you approach them with the same care and craft that you approach long form fiction with, but you are clearly just going like, how do I make a crying baby in a movie theater into like a legitimate visceral horror story? Wouldn't that be fun? And then you're off.
Yeah. I mean, I call them stoner epiphanies because there's a certain kind of like naivete to them. Maybe I shouldn't call them stoner epiphanies, but I feel like it's just like asking innocent questions that we tend to forget to ask. Like there's almost this feeling of like, if you take a few too many tokes, you start to kind of like ponder the realities of the world around you in this way that's just like, I wonder what would happen if that crying baby in the movie theater was actually a monster. Like, and like it's just the freedom, the privilege of being open to the world, like asking questions. And I do think that the playfulness that you're getting at with Stephen King's earlier short story collections, it's either him having fun or it's him taking in the world around him in this way that you feel like his eyes are just so open, and there's an innocence there. There's like a puckishness. Even him at his scariest, like you kind of get the sense that like young little Stevie is just like, hey, I wonder what would happen if there was like algae on this beer can, or you name it.
Yeah. Well, and talking about Skeleton Crew and the way it's laid out, this is also just one of the most baller moves of all time, because this was published in the mid 1980s, by which point Stephen King had become Stephen King. So this was kind of his first opportunity to just be like, I'm just going to show you what I got. Like, I'm not trying to, I don't need to impress anybody. I know that this is just going to be out in the world and people are going to buy it. And he opens this thing with a novella that is as compelling and gripping and thematically thought through as a full-length novel, and that is The Mist, which has gone down in history now as like one of the Stephen King stories because of Frank Darabont's movie. And according to him, that started when like a storm rolled through where he was living, and he went to the store after the storm to get some supplies, and it was kind of a madhouse, and he went, what if there were monsters out there and we all got trapped in here? And that became The Mist. And I guess this is just my way of segueing into talking about individual stories that are standouts. Because The Mist, I read that in one afternoon. I brought the book home, opened it, The Mist, what's this? And just could not stop. I had to know every part of that story. I think it might still be my favorite piece of fiction from the collection, just because of that experience of reading it for the first time. Though obviously I acknowledge the greatness of others, but like, what is you mentioned The Jaunt. Is that like your standout piece from this collection?
Well, okay. First off, sidebar. Can you imagine living in a world where you read The Mist prior to Darren Bount's feature film version of it? Like I feel privileged to have read the story
Yeah, me too.
before the movie, because the movie resonates in its own way, at its own frequency, that I wouldn't say eclipses the story, but it definitely it creates a cognitive dissonance where you start to kind of like the movie becomes the story, and or it runs the risk of like the ending becoming the ending of the kind of the narrative, whether you're talking about the short story or talking about the movie, you're talking about the ending of the movie.
Yeah.
And like it's hard to kind of rectify that in your brain, unless you existed in a world where you read the story, like, the movie doesn't exist or didn't exist. And I was a kid and I read this story first, well before, the movie ever came about. And I'm so grateful for that, because now that the movie's out there, it is so hard to like think about it without thinking about bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, and I mean, you have that quote from King now too, where he's like, "Well, if I had thought of that ending, I would have written that ending, but I didn't think of that ending then." So
Totally.
but anyway, on to your what are your standouts from the collection?
Okay, I I am going to barrel through the ones that mean the most to me, and it's honestly, I think I could get it down to 4, if not 3, and it's the Jaunt, the Raft, Beach World, and Survivor Type. And I think Survivor Type is the one that resonates the strongest for me. And that is like, I mean, what an amazing problem to have of like, what's your favorite top Stephen King short story from this collection? But like, I love The Mist, but like, you can't beat the Jaunt. You can't beat the Raft. You can't beat Beach World. You can't like, but Survivor Type, like, to me, like, like that. I think if you put a gun to my head and said pick one, and that's saying something, because like I really want to say the Raft, but again, I might be saying the Raft because of Creepshow 2. I don't know, maybe it's like that's a possibility. But I can say Survivor Type because, short of the Creepshow animated episode they did, like Survivor Type exists wholly within my imagination.
Yeah, I've actually never watched the Creepshow adaptation because I just want to live with Survivor Type as it exists on the page. Like no shade to the Creepshow people, they do great stuff, but it is for those who don't know, like Survivor Type is one guy on a deserted island who was muling heroin and got stranded while muling heroin. He got shipwrecked, right? It wasn't a plane crash, it was a ship, wasn't it?
Oh my God. I thought it was a plane, but I could be totally wrong.
Was it a plane?
He's crashed. God, yeah. I want to say it's a plane, but now I'm going to be embarrassed if I'm wrong.
Hang on.
I have it right here.
Oh no, it says shipwrecked.
Yeah, it's a cruise ship. Oh my God.
Yeah. He was on a ship. Ship went down. And he escapes to this little deserted island, and all he really has is heroin, and there's not a lot of food. And he's like, well, he was a surgeon before he started muling drugs. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
So he starts to realize that he can safely cannibalize himself if he takes the right meat from the right part and doesn't hit arteries that will cause him to completely bleed out. Oh, because he's a Survivor Type and he is not going to give up. It is so chilling just thinking about it, I probably haven't sat down and read Survivor Type in several years at this point, but just thinking about, and I remember King telling the story too of like he had the idea for Survivor Type, but then he had to like call his doctor and say, so like let's say you had to eat your own flesh, like where would you start? Where would you cut that it would be safe to cut? And I would love to hear that phone conversation played back. But
oh my God.
it is as much as I love Stephen King's like Beach World is not a particular standout to me, weirdly, but weirdly because The Jaunt is, but Beach World isn't for some reason. But I tend to like Stephen King when he's doing that, like, this is an ordinary neighborhood. This is an ordinary town. Oh, wait, no, it's not. But Survivor Type is not that. Survivor Type is a completely extraordinary thing. Like a bolt of lightning. The odds of this happening are just like astronomical. But he makes it so real and so effective. And I am jealous of his ability to do that every time I read it.
I, to this day, can remember being 13 years old, reading the last line of that story. And I remember the chill, the feeling that it gave me. And that was 200 years ago now. Like that was a long time. And yet, if anyone, and you know, I don't know if this is a spoiler warning because it's been however many decades now, but like if anyone says ladyfingers, oh my God, oh God, it tastes just like ladyfingers. Like if anyone were to say those words, I feel the feeling that I felt decades ago as a child, as a kid, reading those lines for the first time. And who gets to say that? Like, what story out there in this world? Like, you want to talk about the power of fiction, the power of literature? Like, here's a guy who wrote a story almost like probably like half a century ago now, and like it still resonates. Like oh my God, like it terrifies me to no end thinking of Survivor Type. And it's not supernatural. There's no monsters, there's no ghosts. It is purely man and the evil within and the kind of depravity, the lengths that someone will go. And I marvel at it. Like it is truly, genuinely like, because, and I'll tell you why, it's a total Edgar Allan Poe style story to me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, the psychology of it where you're like, and you as the reader are now, you have to engage with the story in this way where your imagination is doing the heavy lifting of like, well, because it's not on the page. Like it cues you up to know what this character is doing to himself. But like those last few lines are basically like, okay, what's going on here? What's he doing to himself? How is this happening? And like the gestational process of your imagination suddenly painting that portrait, and like you're the one who's doing that heavy lift, and you're the one walking away being like, oh my God, that's what's happening. That's not on the page. That's just you. That's you kind of like formulating that picture. And that's beautiful. That is a wonderful gift that Stephen King gives us. And
the other brilliant thing about it is it's epistolary. It's this guy keeping a journal of what he's doing to keep himself alive because he has that kind of ego. He's like, I'm going to let people know how I pulled this off. And so you just, you get to see him. It's like the end of The Whole Mess from Nightmares and Dreamscapes. You just get to see this guy lose it. And there is no detachment of omniscient third person. And there's no like clinical description of every little move he's making. It's more about the mental state and like what it takes to push you to that place and what toll that would then take. Yeah. And thinking about it now, like as you were talking, I'm drawing lines in my head between Survivor Type and at least two stories in Acquired Taste. One is Baby Carrots, which it's not a one-to-one comparison, but I can sort of think I can sort of see like this. I can see Survivor Type sort of living it way in the back of your head for Baby Carrots, and the other is the opening story called The Fireplace, which oh, but this is the thing I didn't mention, by the way, y'all. I talked about how fun Acquired Taste is and how like it's very playful and there's a lot of cool. My dog is barking. He also read it. He agrees. There's a lot of really like fun, impish, delightful stuff in it. But this is a book that opens with a guy contemplating what would happen if he threw a baby in a fireplace. Yeah. And so I'm like, yeah, definitely a Clay McLeod Chapman joint. But yeah, it's I mean, we talked before about you, but both of us, and the way that like copying Stephen King's writing was sort of the entree into short fiction, and it's very clearly like still a key influence on the way that you write short fiction. And you mentioned, like before we started recording, you mentioned Night Shift holding that important place for you alongside Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff in Acquired Taste reads like Night Shift era King to me.
Yeah. I mean, there's just no getting around it. Like we're all paying lip service to King. And I think short fiction for me has always been, there's nobody who does it. Well, I was going to say there's nobody who does it better, but we were just talking about Nathan Ballingood.
We were talking about Nathan Ballingood. So, I can't say that because I'm on record saying Gemma Files is the best horror short fiction writer working right now. So I have to stick to my guns there because I want Gemma to come back on the show sometime.
I mean, yeah, I fall. This apple fell from the Stephen King tree for sure, and I'm the Fireplace, Baby Carrots. But I would say, what King did for me was lead me to Lovecraft, led me to Matheson, led me to like, he is the aperture, he's the doorway. And you realize that he's like an opening to a real lush world of literature. And like, you go to Lovecraft and that gets you to Poe if you haven't been there before. And like, we're all just kind of like tapping into this larger tapestry of weird fiction, Ambrose Bierce, or, you just name Algernon Blackwood, like it's all there, and it just kind of feeds into one another. And King will definitely kind of attract a lot of the light within that, but there are so many branches and bifurcations that I stopped kind of worrying about like, oh, is this too much like Stephen King? And just be like, go with it, man.
Yeah. Well, and I do think one of the great gifts of King, if you look at his whole body of work and all of the introductions and afterwards and story notes he's done, and Danse Macabre, the nonfiction book that he published around the time that Skeleton Crew came out, is another. He wears his influences on his sleeve. Totally. And he has never been afraid to say like, oh, I got that from Arthur Machen. I got that from Robert Bloch. I got that from Richard Matheson. And so it is a very literal, like, no. If you like my stuff, go read this guy. He's doing amazing. But if you want a great story collection to get right now, you can go and pre-order Acquired Taste by Clay McLeod Chapman. It is out September 9th. When this episode goes up, it will be August 27th. August 28th was of 2024 was the day that our first ever episode goes up, which also featured Clay. And since the podcast is having its first birthday, my precious little baby is having its first birthday, I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you, Clay, for helping us get this thing off the ground. There were a handful of authors when I just sort of started musing on Twitter, back when Twitter was still a thing that I used. Like, hey, if I did this podcast, who would come on the show? Who would be willing to be a guest on my podcast? And you and Rachel Harrison and Nat Cassidy and Max Booth and Josh Mallerman and Paul Tremblay and a couple of other people that I'm probably forgetting, immediately, most of you having never spoken to me, said, yeah, I'd be happy to do it. And you enthusiastically came in with a super fun first episode and got me on my feet. So I just want to take the opportunity to say I really appreciate what you have done for me and what you have done for this show.
Oh, you're giving me way too much credit. It's an amazing show. You get people to talk about the things that like they love, and like, you know, talking about Skeleton Crew, like for me, it's always like, who can I bug about this thing? And it's like, do you like this book? It's a really good book, right? And like, that's it's awesome. We should be thanking you, my friend, for giving us the opportunity to just geek out for an hour.
It is my absolute pleasure every single time. Like I look forward to these chats with every author I've ever talked to. It has been wonderful. Like I said, I'm talking to John Langan tomorrow, and like my life is still my life. You know, like this is not. I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not out here making millions off a podcast or anything like that. But I live in this world now over the last year where like I can email Clay and say like, hey Clay, what do you think about doing this? Do you want to talk about this? Or I can email Stephen Graham. Like I had lunch with Stephen Graham Jones like a month ago when he came through Austin. And that is like, if you had told me that like 2 years ago that would be a thing that I could do, I would have been like, what on earth? So all of that was just my way of saying like, y'all didn't have to give me such a warm welcome, and you absolutely did. And now you're never going to get rid of me is what I'm saying. 'Cause I'm just going to be here for forever bugging everybody. Like, do you want to talk? Come on. What do you want to talk about this time? Do you want to talk about, we haven't done this Mario Bava movie from 1968. You want to talk about that? Come on, let's go. So,
I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. And I am very grateful to have you every time you come on. Clay, before we let you go, will you let everyone know where they can find you online and what you've got cooking for Acquired Taste promotion?
It's funny. I'm on the social medias, trying to do the social media thing. Acquired Taste. September and October are going to be intense. I'm kind of sticking to the Northeast, but I'll be around. I'm going to be doing some fun events. Check your calendars, look on my social medias, and see if I'm coming to your town.
And of course, Fearmongers is still an ongoing show that you do. You just did one with Gretchen Felker Martin and Wendy and Wagner, both of whom were recent guests on this show. Both have great books out. Go follow Clay on the social medias, if for no other reason than whenever he does a book event, you get some kind of insane video of Clay sprinting all out through a bookstore or an airport or a panel room or any number of things like that. Clay McLeod Chapman has been our guest. Clay, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thanks once again to Clay McLeod Chapman for being on the show. It's always a pleasure having Clay on. Acquired Taste is out September 9th, wherever books are sold. I highly recommend picking it up. I also highly recommend following Clay on whatever social media you choose. I follow him on Blue Sky and on Instagram. He is a lot of fun. He always has cool stuff coming up. He posts fun videos of him doing insane things at book signings. It's great. And of course, if you want to keep track of everything we have going on, the best way to do that right now is to follow us on Blue Sky. We are at scareshapedus.bsky.social. That is where you will get new guest announcements, links to all of our episodes, giveaways whenever we do giveaways. all kinds of stuff like that. I also recommend, once again, going to MatthewJacksonWrites.com and signing up for our newsletter. That is where you will also get every episode of the show ad-free right there for you. You will also get essays from me, book reviews, film reviews, bonus audio from the show, a bunch of other stuff. We have paid tiers. They're not full of content yet. I don't expect everybody to go sign up and subscribe with money if you're not able to do that, but I would really appreciate it if you headed over and at least signed up for the free tier to get our readership going. We're going to have a lot of fun over there. I will make it worth your while. And I very much appreciate your support. We are also on Facebook. We're The Scares That Shaped Us on Facebook. We are also on YouTube. We're The Scares That Shaped Us over there as well. If that is how you prefer to listen to your podcast, please like and subscribe. And if you like the show, please tell your friends. Leave us a 5-star review on the podcasting app of your choice. Share our episodes around. Let people know about us. Help us grow so that we can get more and more cool guests on the show. I am having so much fun 1 year into this thing. I don't ever want to stop. And I'm grateful for everyone's support and everyone's warmth and love. I said this to Clay during the interview, but I will say it to you, the listeners. I was not sure what was going to happen when I started this. I'm not a podcaster by trade. It is not something I had ever done before as a host. This was just me wanting to do longer form interviews with horror authors that I love and talk about something I'm always fascinated by, which is our horror origin stories, how we come to love these things, what it means to us, what it does to us as people. And every single step of this process over the past 44 episodes and however many guests that is, we've had a few repeat guests now, 30 some odd guests, I think, has been an absolute joy. I love every second of this. And one of the reasons we are able to keep doing that is, of course, you, the listener, who is hopefully hearing me say this right now. So I just want to say to all of you, thank you so much for listening, for downloading the show, for supporting the show, for sharing links, for being a part of this wonderful adventure that I sort of started on a whim about a year ago. It means the world to me that you're here, and I hope you stick around because we're going to do a lot of cool stuff in the months and hopefully the years to come. We will be back next week with a brand new episode. Our guest will be John Langan. We're going to talk to John about his wonderful new short story collection, Lost in the Dark and Other Excursions. And we're going to talk about an amazing short story by Jack Cady called The Night We Buried Road Dog, which I had never read until John brought it up for the show. It is wonderful. We had a really great in-depth discussion about all the layers of that story and how it has affected John as one of our finest short story writers working today. So that will drop September 3rd at noon Central. I hope you tune in for that. That's it for me this week. Until next time, thank you all so much. Again, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. I'm Matthew Jackson, and this is The Scares That Shaped Us.